Okay, it's 7:02, so we'll get the meeting started. Jerry is for roll call. He has who's here. You good with that, Jerry? Is that a yes?
He's muted.
Jerry, you're muted.
Yep,
Oh,
sorry. I'm all set.
okay, good. Our first order of business is our approval of minutes from April 15th. I know that Jerry sent them back out to everybody. Did everybody have the opportunity to look at those? I hope. So I guess we need to, I'm sorry, it's been a while. Geez, I'm so rusty.
A motion to approve. We need a motion to approve.
Yes, so we need a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting from April 15th.
So moved.
Chad, so moved. Any second of the motion?
Sure, I'll second.
Danny Lee, second the motion. Discussion? Okay, so anybody?
All in favor?
I apologize. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Or any abstentions? Nothing that I see. Okay, so we're good there.
So Frank, before we get too far here, I do notice that we have Bruce Jones listed down here. And I guess I'm just wondering if that's just if he's acting as a member of the public here today, if we just clarify that.
Jerry, that might be me, Bruce Wagner. For some
okay.
reason, I have a different last name every time I log in.
Oh,
Okay, all right. So, all right. So,
I think my name was like Bruce Maxson a couple months ago. So,
okay, all right. Well, you're
Bruce Wayne is
Jones
going
today.
too.
yeah, Wayne, Lee. whichever
Bruce Lee,
one.
yeah. My cousin.
Mystery solved. I like it. Actually, I was gonna, because the next step was if there was any public comment. I don't, so with the new committee that we have, I don't know, you have to make me smarter on the officioso, what is the right word? Officio members?
Ex
So they can-
officio, yeah.
Right. Considered part of the committee, not the public, I'm assuming.
I guess just the ex officio members of the task force are members of the task force. They just don't count for voting and they don't count for quorum. So
Perfect. Okay. So
we
I don't.
actually have 5 out of 5 committee of task force members who are voting members present here today, which is a first in a long time.
That's great. And I don't see anyone from the public, so I guess we have no public comment at this time. So new business first. Jerry sent out the drawings of the concept of the Clodchester School. As you looked at that, we are, I mean, I'm sure Jerry can go in deeper, but as we talked about last month, or that we chatted about unofficially, the town has drawings of Clodchester and what they would like to, and what their proposals are and what they're looking at. So I don't know if Jerry, I don't know if you can, well, I don't know if you can put that on your screen now, probably not. Looks like
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
I'm very
That's fine.
close.
Oh, good. So I don't know if anyone else looked at them. I looked at them this morning.
Yeah, he
and
sent
they're,
it in his email.
Right. A little different from the last time we saw it. Actually, I think, interesting enough, there are no, the business part of it seems to have, unless I missed something. Maybe I'm not loading fast enough.
Yeah, this is a pretty big file, so I'm hoping, can everybody see that?
Yeah, Jerry, we can see it.
We can see it.
Okay,
No, that looks great.
all right. So I guess, let me just start by kind of telling everybody or making it clear to everybody what these drawings are. The town of Groton has Clochester property, and they're in the midst of trying to make a decision on what to do with that property. So Kent and Frost were asked to come up with some conceptual designs that included what the Athletic Fields Task Force was interested in. And also the economic development folks also have some interest in potentially using this property as some type of a mixed use development and putting a little bit of this perhaps on the tax rolls and getting some other benefits out of this property. So there are several, I think I've got 6 pages here of potential concepts. And I think actually with Chad being here and he being one of the people that put this together, maybe at this point I can tag on, call tag and have him take it over.
Hey, sure, Jerry, I can do that. So a couple things I'll say. This was a very preliminary, very intentionally very sketchy conceptual review. And to be frank, it was never really intended to be public until we kind of polished it a little bit more. But it has been sitting out there for a couple of months as the town has been trying to figure out maybe the new process for going through how do we redevelop town land. So I think it was just time that it got out there for at least this task force to be able to see what the thoughts are and have a discussion and maybe solicit some input from this group as to pros or cons as to the options. So as Jerry mentioned, it was, how do we fit or can we fit was really the first question. And can we fit the 3 fields that we've talked about with the necessary parking and other improvements and amenities that we've always talked about that need to be there? That's kind of question number 1, and how might we want to do that? And then question 2 was, how much economic development potential is there if there was a redevelopment, with the idea being it's going to be expensive to tear down the school. So if there's the ability to make some money or have a partnership with a developer where the developer takes the school down and then is able to build some commercial real estate and have that be a symbiotic relationship with the fields, is that possible? What does that look like? So these are just some very high level sketches that look at just gross areas. How much room do we really have to work with? Can we fit things the sizes that we wanted to? And then really parking. And so the first one that's on the screen here was just the simple all fields, right? Concept A was just nothing but fields. It was the 2 rectangles, the multi-use fields that we've been talking about, full size, and then that intermediate size baseball field. The orientation for both multi-use fields and baseball are all optimal. And then we had enough parking to be able to facilitate increase the number of spaces at Pequannock Plains because we know we don't have sufficient parking there. Put in a new, recreation type building that's associated with the playscape, Tercentennial Playground, and create a loop parking that goes around the giant cliff in the middle so that, it starts to make the whole park feel as one park with some drop-off areas and sufficient parking for all 6 fields as it would be. So that's kind of that initial concept. So the next one started looking at buildings, right? If we add in some retail and commercial space, So yep, along the road there, we're proposing 4 3-story buildings that'd be, retail on the first floor with 2 floors of residential above. So in that little spreadsheet off to the side, you can see kind of the square footages of gross square footages. And then really what we do that because that's what generates the parking numbers. And we know what the parking for the field should be about 80 spaces per field. So that's quite a few spaces. And then we add in the spaces for the residential commercial. We need, 386 spaces. Groton does have a shared use parking statute. So we were kind of playing with that a little bit to get down the numbers and be able to have that symbiotic relationship of, maybe when the commercial is really busy in the middle of the day, the fields aren't going to be used. And so we don't need to duplicate all the parking. But this one looked at, like I said, those 4 3-story buildings right along the road. And then what we get for parking and how that parking might be able to be shared between the two. And it really does, we cram a lot of stuff in there to make that functional, right? And then the idea is that good? We basically leave kind of Pequannock Plains close to like it is. We enhance the parking that's there. We don't touch the ledge in the middle. And then we get all the fields kind of tucked in as tight as we can and put on as much parking as we can get in there to service those fields. So that's that concept. Third one, really looked at just minimizing the amount of parking, not trying to bring in Pequannock Plains as much into the mix, kind of keeping it a little bit more separate, just having parking and circulation to come in. You can see here the orientation of at least one of those fields isn't as great because it's now east and west. Still fine. I mean, plenty of fields, plenty of places that we all play that have east-west fields. It's just not optimal. And then we take the intermediate baseball and kind of squeeze it into the corner, and then look at the parking that kind of wraps the edge. One nice thing of this parking is that it kind of can be double served along the back of all those buildings and then along the majority of the fields. So it gets, instead of having kind of that bigger lot that was in that last one down low, this kind of spreads the parking out along the edge and moves that building kind of central between the 3 fields, and does allow for kind of what we would call a pedestrian spine that goes between the 2 fields, kind of through that crosswalk between the buildings. So that could be kind of a very nice streetscape component. And then that would then wrap around and tie into the trail that goes to Pequannock Plains. So that'd be that connection. So if you want to go to the next one, Jerry. So this one now is kind of looking at each one. We've kind of stepped up the amount of development and therefore the amount of cost. So this one continues to go that direction. All the buildings now are larger. So we're at 40,000 square foot buildings with courtyards. It means we need a little bit more parking. It means it takes up a little bit more space. The fields can't all fit by the time we kind of take that much room up along the road. So the fields get pushed over. And one possible solution for that is here where we've gotten rid of the large granite ridge, the cliff right there, and put the field right in its place. So it spreads the fields out, gives us a little bit more breathing room between the fields, gets the parking in that we need, creates circulation, and gets the bigger buildings. But obviously, it would be a bigger cost because you're taking down all of that ledge. But the short answer is we can make it work. Yep, continue down, Jerry, it's fine. So this one then kind of takes that one, goes a little bit further, looking at integration of the rest of the parking. It maximizes parking. So now where the last one, technically we couldn't quite get enough spaces because the buildings got bigger. This one now goes the other way where we leave the fields kind of like they were in that last one.